I'm JohnBerry555, and today I'm continuing my retro reviews of Gilligan's Island with Season 1, Episode 3, Voodoo Something to Me. So, in this episode, Gilligan's standing guard duty, and he keeps on falling asleep, so their supply hut gets stolen, and they lose all the flares, and, well, actually not necessarily all the flares, but they lose their flare gun that they've been using every single night to try to sing into a ship that may be out there. They don't know, but what this is, they don't want you to lose that opportunity. Of course, like I say, Gilligan falls asleep and it gets stolen from. But can I say something? Why is Gilligan the only one standing guard duty? It's implied that Gilligan always falls asleep on guard duty, and therefore when he wakes up, he always shoots off the gun that he's using for defense. Which, by the way, in the previous episode, they lost all the bullets for it, but now apparently they do have enough bullets for Gilligan to use them up again. It's like the torpedoes from Star Trek Voyager. Though at least in the episode, once Gilligan fires the last one, it stays lost. But here's my thing, if Gilligan's always falling asleep, and then in the morning he has to do a bunch of tests before he can take a nap, no wonder he's falling asleep. You're not letting him sleep! Though, considering he's falling asleep on guard duty, he should be wide awake in the morning. But, no, I'm serious. If you're having Gilligan do everything morning and night, of course he's falling asleep. Now, the gag of the episode wouldn't work if they did that, but why didn't they, at least say, like, know what, tomorrow night I'll take watch duty, Gilligan. Why didn't Skipper ever say that? I'm just saying. But again, you wouldn't have the humor of the episode. But like I said, that's the premise. Well, next night, Gilligan actually does try to stay awake, and he's attacked by a creature, which is literally just a dummy in black fabric wearing shoes, even though the shadows make it, and the audio makes it sound like it's a gorilla. But it's actually just a chimp once we actually see it, which I think is kind of very interesting, that they make it sound like a gorilla, but it's really just a chimp who is just stealing to steal, while the professor's like, has to be a man. Why would anyone else just take a flare gun? Doesn't make sense. The idea is looking for a motive, but the chimp was just taking to take. It didn't have a motive in grabbing the stuff. Probably just like, oh, shiny, neat, I'll grab it, kind of deal. Even takes Gilligan's clothes at one point and gets the skipper to think that Gilligan's been turned into a chimp by Voodoo. The episode's called Voodoo Something to Me, and Skipper is convinced that Voodoo is responsible for the theft, not a more sensible, or should I say, more realistic explanation, such as an animal or another human, which is what the professor is thinking. The professor's thinking an escaped convict who doesn't want to be found. Which, honestly, yes, the professor's logic is sound if you're assuming that the thief is stealing with motive rather than without motive. But again, that doesn't matter because the skipper is convinced it's Voodoo. He scares Gilligan, who sets traps that Gilligan sets off once, and the skipper sets off twice. And then there's a point too where Gilligan, like I said, the chimp dresses in his clothes, but that's only because Gilligan got covered in mud and had to wash himself off. And during that time, he undressed and the chimp stole his clothes and put them on for some reason. And then the chimp at some point also steals the skipper's hat, gets out of Gilligan's clothes, so Gilligan now thinks the skipper has been turned into a chimp. They bump into each other, and the conversation is masterfully worded well for us, where we know that it's just a chimp, and neither one of them was turned into a chimp, but both of them think the other one was, because that does happen. It's just a hilarious scene. And then eventually they get back to camp and realize, oh, it's the chimp. Gilligan grabs a banana, is able to successfully trade the flare gun for the banana, and then he accidentally fires into the supply hut and sets all the other flares off. Oopsie. Again, it's a fun episode. I don't know how well the voodoo representation is per se, though I think they did okay because they kept it like, the skipper's the only one who believes it and all that, so it's coming from sailors' superstitions, therefore it doesn't have to actually be founded in reality, into actual native Pacific Islander beliefs. I still just don't know how well it is represented, if it's actually accurate of any actual superstitions that were held by sailors in the Pacific Islands, in the 1960s or even earlier. I just don't know for sure. But again, the fact that it's portrayed as a superstition and it's never endorsed by the story itself as it's just a chimp, I think ultimately it comes down to it's okay because it's one character who has a superstition and the story proves him wrong. So, like I said, overall good for an episode. There's even a scene where Mr. Howell gets some sweat on his forehead because he put some bamboo bars on the window because he thinks there's a prowler loose. And he's like, perspiration. I've never had this before. It's like, no, really playing into the fact that the Howells are rich and therefore have not done physical labor, even though in the Home Sweet Hut, Mr. Howell built the hut. Now, it fell apart when Gilligan got involved, but he still built it, so he didn't sweat then. And again, it's only the third episode, yet they're talking like they've had a bunch of, a whole season's worth of bad luck on the island already, which just shows you the episodic nature of the show. The huts are all fully built in this episode, so Home Sweet Hut's not is like day 2, and now everything is set and we're in the status quo, so episodes can be moved around at random until they change the design of the huts for the colored seasons of the show. But like I said, enjoyable episode. I would like to hear your thoughts on the episode in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next week for episode 4. Good night, sweet Skipper. Thank you for watching my latest retro review. I do hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please be sure to give this video a like. Also, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't done so already, and I hope to see you for my very next video.